Hello, everyone. For today's studies is Spiritism Inspiring Lives. All of us who may be present here, all of those who later on may join, as we are choosing to reflect today a bit about the theme, are we all mediums? What do we think about the theme? Let's give us time to learn through Spiritism about mediums, about spirits, about ourselves. And we have the member of our society, Cintia Coutinho, who will be facilitating the theme for us tonight. And in that way, we kindly ask you all, let's follow together and learn together a bit more of it.
Hello everyone. Thank you for being us today, studying about Spiritism. It's always a pleasure for me to be here and talk about it, as I think Spiritism is a very, very powerful tool that helps us in our personal development. It helps us to understand why we are here, why we are on Earth, where we came from, and where we will go to once this existence finishes. It's nice to remember that, as Allan Kardec points out, that Spiritism is the science that explains the nature, the origin, and the destiny of the spirits and its interactions with the material world. It is a science, it is a philosophy, and it's a religion that requires continuous study for us to understand it. And this is why, for me, it's an honor to be here today talking about it, understanding, studying, and we will be focusing today on the second or the last part of its definition, which is its interaction of the spirits with the material world. The title that we'll be reflecting on is Are We All Mediums? That's the point we'll be discussing today about mediumship and its implications to all of us immortal spirits. So just for us to point out what we'll be studying today, our reflections will be based on the 5 books of the Spiritist codification written by Allan Kardec with the help of all the immortal spirits, benefactors of humanity. So we'll be using mainly the Spirit's book and the Medium's book, but just for us to have an idea, we have the 5 books written by Allan Kardec. First one is the Spirit's book, which was written in April 1857, and it contains the very principles of the Spiritist doctrine. We could say that it is more concerned with the philosophical side of Spiritism. Second one is the Medium's book, which was published in January 1861, and it happens to be more concerned with the experimental side of Spiritism, or the mediumship phenomenon, explains what happens, types of mediumship, and its implications for us. We can say that it's more related to the Spiritist science. We also have the Gospel According to Spiritism, published in April 1864, and it presents the Christian morality according to Spiritism. All the teachings of Jesus explained in details, and also kind of guides for us to put them all in practice. Obviously, we know not in one reincarnation, it will take time until we comprehend and leave everything. We also have Heaven and Hell, that was written and published in August 1865, and it elaborates on arguments presented by theology that seems to contradict science. So Kardec gives a new understanding about those topics according to Spiritism, such as fear of death, existence of heaven and hell, the laws of cause and effect, angels and demons. So it's just different perspective about the same subject. And finally, we have the book called Genesis, which is the last one, and it was published in January 1868, and it's like a rational explanation according to Spiritism about subjects such as the miracles, what is still considered a miracle. It is also about nature of Jesus, creation of the universe, what is God, among other things. But this is just like for us to have an idea what the Spiritist codification is about. We will be talking about today in our conversations about the definition of a spirit, which is the intelligent being of creation. We will be talking about mediumship, records of mediumship phenomena, remembering that mediumship is not something that was created with Spiritism. It's something that always existed, so we'll see it throughout history. We'll be talking about the types of mediumship manifestation. As we are all unique and different human beings, we might be able to perceive the presence of spirits and communicate with them, but it all happens in different ways according to ourselves. We will also be talking about the mediumship and moral development, what certain attitudes or certain choices that we make, what the impact it has on the mediumship and our relationship with the spirits. So for us to begin with our reflections, we can start by reflecting about what is a spirit. We might have come across definition or heard about spirit in childhood when we heard many stories or many fantastic stories about ghosts and the way ghosts related themselves to us and the physical body, to humans. But it's important to put aside for a moment all those ideas that we had and understand what a spirit is. So there is a very interesting, the beginning of the Spirit's book, Kardec explains that the universe is formed basically of three elements, which he says is God above everything, spirit and matter. Matter, spirit, he says that it is the intelligent being of creation, and matter is the instrument of the spirit. So spirit is what God created, human beings, but intelligent beings of the creation. Spirit is what gives life to the body. And is another interesting point to note when observing phenomena and explaining Spiritism. Kardec noted that human souls, spirits, are merely what human souls that populate the universe. Basically, once life of the physical body ceases to exist, when our physical body dies, we never cease to exist as spirits. We continue our journey in a different dimension, but we continue to exist the way we are. So observing it and its interactions with us through mediumship, Kardec noted that spirits are merely the souls that have been freed of their corporeal envelope. Once life ceases to exist on planet Earth, we will go back as immortal spirits in a different realm. So comparing this and noting that spirits do not have a magical form or different form, we will continue to have the same form we had while living on planet Earth. We will look the same way, we will have the same personal characteristics. The only difference is that we will be living without the physical body. So another point, very interesting for us to understand, in a very synthetic way, in the Medium's book, Part 2, Chapter 1, Item 54, Kardec explains that after seriously observing the phenomena, he came to the conclusion that we while incarnate on Earth, we're made of basically three components. First one is the soul or spirit, which is the intelligent principle in which the moral sense resides. So as we said previously, God created us, immortal spirits, simple and ignorant, meaning that we had no knowledge, but through reincarnation, which is the ability we have to enter a new existence, a new body, to evolve and to develop the aptitudes that we're lacking. Through reincarnation, we develop our intelligence, our moral sense, we grow in knowledge. immortal. So we are the intelligent principle. We are what give life to matter. And then the second component of us human beings is the body, which is the envelope or the rough clothing that we wear while here on earth, that we need to use for our advancement. So from time to time, we are given the opportunity to come back in a new existence, to learn in a new physical body. But for us, Kardec points out, to be able to use this material body, we need a link that links the spirit with the body. And this link he calls the perispirit, which is something fluidic, semi-material, and it is like an envelope of the soul, and it serves to link the soul with the body, with the physical body. And it's important to note as well that once the life extinguishes to exist with the physical body, the spirit will continue to use its perispirit. So just to make it very clear, we can see here in the picture what throughout the Spirit's book, it has, we forgot to mention, but it has 1019 questions, and some of the questions are about the perispirit, and Kardec on the questions explained that this is more or less how it looks like, the three components that we're made of: the spirit, the perispirit, and the physical body. Perispirit really looks like the physical body, but it's just it seems to be of a different kind of matter. And it's still in the Medium's book, part 1, chapter 1, item 3. Kardec emphasizes that the body, as we said before, is no more than an accessory for the spirit, like an envelope, and it abandons it after having worn it. We have an expiry date, obviously. We can't continue to live in the same body forever. So we need to change, to go through this process of changing and coming back again. And he says that we also have the perispirit, which links both. It is made of matter, different matter, not perceived by us, but it is people who have mediumship faculties, they can obviously perceive the perispirit as well as the physical body. And again, the perispirit, as we can see in the picture as well, so just for us to have an idea what it is like, is very, very similar to what we look like, our physical form, but it is of a different matter. And one it has many characteristics and many functions, but one that is very important to mention is that ideoplastic power, which, as we mentioned before, we spirits have a total control of our body. We spirits are in control of the matter, and it's, having said that, we can control how our perispirit look like, and every single the choices we make, they have an impact in the perispirit, and things that we'll have to deal with later, depending on what choices we made. And again, the perispirit is an intermediary between the body and the physical, the body and the soul. And there are more characteristics or more functions of the perispirit, but we won't have time to go through today. But it's important for us to remember it as being this link between the soul and the body, and that we spirits are what controls matter. We are in charge of everything. So having said that, now knowing now that we are immortal, that we are temporarily here on earth in a physical body, we may wonder or question what happens to us. We know that there is reincarnation, which is the possibility to come again in a new physical body, to go through different experiences. We know that there is reincarnation. So what happens to us once life ceases to exist in the physical body, we go back to the spiritual world. What happens to us when we are awaiting for a new reincarnation? What happens in the spiritual world? And this is another point that Kardec touches upon in the Spirit's book, question 224, when he asks the spiritual benefactors what happens with us in the interval between reincarnations. And it's told that we become what they call an errant spirit. We are waiting for a new reincarnation, and we don't know how long it lasts. It could be hours, depending on the level of evolution of the spirits. Could be days, could be years, but it is a moment that the spirit has to think about its experiences, all experiences it had on planet Earth, everything that the spirit managed to accomplish, everything that a spirit sees as unsuccessful experiences, everything that a spirit feels like it needs to go through again. So it's a time of planning, a time of thinking and reflecting about experiences and what's next. It's obviously not the case for every spirit, and this can be studied in more details in one of the books of the codification we mentioned in the second slide. And this book is called Heaven and Hell. In the second part of this book, Allan Kardec interviews a lot of spirits and asks about how was their process of disincarnation and what they are currently doing. So there we can find more information about what happened with spirits between reincarnations, what their occupations are. So it's just for us to have a more precise idea, because it's different for everyone depending on choices made. So just to summarize, because we'll be moving on now to talk about mediumship. Just to summarize, we are immortal spirits temporarily in a physical body, and we have a perispirit which links the soul or spirit with the physical body, and we're not something extraordinary in terms of it's out of the laws, the natural laws. And having said that, knowing that and accepting that, we can say that every single phenomena or interaction we have with the extracorporeal world, it's based on the survival of the spirit upon death and its ability to manifest itself. As we said before, we don't cease to exist. We continue to exist. We continue to be an intelligence outside a physical body. And for that reason, we can communicate with those who are still here on planet Earth, for example. And this is a normal, natural law. They are clearly explained in the 5 books of the codification, and it's nothing regarded as supernatural, because it's something that is known and Spiritism can explain. So now us knowing that, knowing where all these how these phenomena can be explained, then we take out of our mind this idea that something supernatural is like a miracle or something that cannot be explained in a rational way. So thinking about the definition of mediumship, what is mediumship and how does it happen? We mentioned in the first slide that Spiritism is concerned with what is a spirit and is with its interaction with the material world. So we can say that all of us, we can sense in different degrees the influence or the presence of spirits in different ways. All of us, human beings incarnate on planet Earth. But Kardec says that usually, however, he uses this terminology or this label to classify those who have a more characterized mediumistic faculty, or more to say those who can clearly perceive the presence of these spirits and develop a sort of communication with them, because sometimes we might perceive them to a degree that is so subtle and so little, not as intense for us to be able to say or perceive in a more characterized extent. So we can see on the right side a picture of what we call a mediumship meeting, where usually when it happens, it starts with a reading, a passage, usually from the gospel, and then we can see all the spiritual benefactors ready on post to help those in need. But this ability to perceive in different degrees the presence of the spirits, those who are outside of the flesh, is what we call mediumship. And it can happen in different ways and different degrees. There is another very interesting definition that we find in a different book called Evolution in Two Worlds by the spirit André Luiz in the chapter 17. He says that mediumship is nothing supernatural. It's like an attribute to the incarnate human that the incarnate human uses to interact with this incarnate one. In the same way that we can use our eyes to see or our mouth to speak, ears to listen, mediumship is something that we are born with in our physical structure. It's something that we reincarnate with it, and it expresses itself. And also, because of the variety of the spirits that communicate with us, it happens to be that mediumship, people with a lot of knowledge can have it, as well as those who doesn't have a lot of knowledge. And the same is something not only for those who are, let's say, morally engaged, or something that is like engaged with the promoting the goodness of others. Anyone in any circumstance of life can develop mediumship despite of choices or despite of level of knowledge. It's not something that is only for those who have a certain level of knowledge or a certain level of values. It's also another point for us to consider is that mediumship is like an invitation from life. It's something that before coming back to planet Earth, before reincarnation, we plan, and we could be in this position because of choices we made, unsuccessful choices we made, and then we came here to rectify our wrongdoings, if we can put it this way. But it could be also an opportunity for more elevated spirits who decide to come back to Earth to help with our progress, to help us to develop morally, intellectually, by presenting us with notions, ideas that we haven't been in contact yet. So they help our development. They help us to advance in our intelligence and moral values. Thinking about the other example, when mediumship is an opportunity for us to redo unsuccessful experiences, is also, we learn with Spiritism that there is a law of cause and effect. So we'll be held accountable when we make choices that have bad repercussions, or in some way have a bad repercussions for other people. So we'll have to come back. We are invited to come back and rectify ourselves. So usually, because mediumship is an invitation from God for us to do good to others, for us to work on our self-improvement and help others at the same time, is always an opportunity we have to develop ourselves and to redo experiences. So, as we mentioned previously, mediumship is not something that was created with Spiritism. It's not a concept that Kardec invented. Mediumship is it is from us, is from our nature, is something that we always had. And we can see records of mediumship throughout history. Since the Bible, there is a lot of mentions to mediumistic phenomena. In the Bible, we will see 4 examples that I bring for us to discuss. Moses, Daniel, Euripides Barçanufo, which is very close to the time we are now, in Chico Xavier. So Emmanuel talks about Moses in the book A Caminho da Luz. He explains what was his interaction with the spirits outside of the body, and he mentions that Moses was an extraordinary medium, and that when the best example he has for us to talk about mediumship with Moses is when he received on the Sinai the 10 commandments, which was again something that was given to him at that moment from the enlightened spirits through mediumship, and it's something that we still learning and considering today. Another very interesting description of phenomena that we have is in the Old Testament, is in the book of Daniel, chapter 5, item 5, and it's called The Writing on the Wall, and it's described as a human hand that appeared and wrote on the wall. All those phenomena, we can find a rational explanation for them. If we have a look at the medium's book, Kardec details every single phenomenon and how they happened, what is the rationale behind them. And we have a more near to our time, Euripides Barçanufo. He was a great student of Spiritism, and he really worked hard to get the message and the knowledge to as many people as he could possibly do. He, at a certain point of his life, his mediumistic faculties blossomed, and he could work as a healer, a medium healer. He could see the spirits, clairvoyance. He could write the message from the spirits, which is called psychography. He had intuition, and he also had something that we called bicorporeality, which is the ability to be present in 2 places at the same time, in different states of consciousness. Another great example for us to consider is Chico Xavier. He had very little time to study, so he only studied at school for 4 years, but he wrote more than 400 books, including poetry and books about history, and it's fascinating to see this when we are tuned with the spiritual benefactors, the ones who work on the development of the planet Earth, to see what we can achieve with mediumship. Types of mediumship, how we perceive spirits, the form we perceive spirits, it varies greatly from one person to another. It's like a bridge. Mediumship, we can say, is like a bridge that connects the different realms of life, the material and the spiritual, and it's diversified. We have Kardec separated them according to how it is expressed. For example, when we hear or when we write messages or when we see the spirits, it is all characterized in the medium's book, but this perception can happen in different degrees. We will be seeing some of them alongside the study today. Some mediums, they have an aptitude for different phenomena, as we have said before, but mediumship expresses itself very differently in different people. So for us to begin with, talking about the perceptions and the different degrees of it, first one that Kardec describes in the medium's book, he divides them into physical phenomena and intellectual phenomena. We'll go through the intellectual phenomena first, and then the last one will be, last slide of the types of mediumship manifestation, will be about the physical phenomenon. So there are those people that their perception of the spiritual world or the presence of the spirits is through very subtle impressions. It might be through a shiver, or it might be through an emotion, strong emotion like crying or laughing. But this is like how we perceive is one way that shows that we can perceive the spirits. This is what Kardec puts on the medium's book. We also have the hearing mediums, which is when we have the ability to hear the spiritual voices or the voices of the spirits who are no longer in the physical body. And then we become like the interpreters between the spiritual and the physical world. This perception can be either internally, like an intuition, when we hear, when we see, we perceive like a conversation going on in our head that we note it's not something we would say, or it's not an idea that we would have. But it could also be like hearing with our ears a voice of the spirits, the communications they want to pass to us. So we've got the hearing mediums, which Kardec puts as is internally or is externally, as the two examples we mentioned. We also have what is called clairvoyant mediums, which is the mediums or the person who are able to see the spirits. And these visions can be like when we are awake, we can see them, but it can also be in altered or different states of consciousness when we can perceive and see the spiritual plane, but we might be with our eyes closed, and we say we see with the eyes of the soul. We can perceive the environment, we can describe scenes, we can describe what's going on, but it might not be with our physical eyes. It might be in a different state of consciousness. When we hear mediums talking about their experiences, there is Divaldo Franco, which is a medium, and he is very liked, let's say, in Brazil, and he talks about his experiences, and he talks about a particular experience where he was working, and he asked one of his colleagues to tell him if she was seeing the person approaching reception. So because he couldn't discern if the spirit was incarnate or discarnate, because his degree of perception was so great that he couldn't tell if the person was in the body or outside the body. So he made an arrangement with a colleague and said, okay, if you see someone approaching the reception, please let me know, and then I will go and address them, so I don't go and talking to spirits while at work. So this is just to illustrate the different degrees, because we might have a very ostensive mediumship, which is this great perceiving the spirits, and because we mentioned earlier the spirits outside of the body look like us in the body, is with the perispirit that it continues to have the same human form. For some of us who have the mediumship at those very intense degrees, it is hard to see and to perceive the difference between those who departed from the body and those who continue to be on the body. So another type of mediumship described at the medium's book is what we call sleepwalking mediums. Kardec explains that when he says that during sleepwalking, people who do sleepwalking, they might be able to communicate with the spirits, to engage in conversations, and it might be unconsciously. They might stand up, walk around, and talk and engage as if they were in their reality. So there is these sleepwalking mediums. So they engage with the spirits, communicating with the spirits during sleep. We also have the healing mediums, and this is Kardec says that it's a very rare type of mediumship, but it's the ability we have by using our own donating our own fluid and associated with the fluid of the spiritual benefactors, like creating a magnetic field. We help people to heal. We help in the people gaining health again. We help in the processes of spiritual influence. But it's very important to note that this type of mediumship has nothing to do with medical, surgical intervention. There's nothing described in the medium's book that says that mediums, healing mediums, are doctors using instruments. It's just and simply an exchange of vital, or an exchange of fluids, an exchange of energy that helps in healing processes. And we have many, if we think about the cures of Jesus, the amount of people he helped, sometimes by touching them, sometimes by having a word with them. We have so many examples that, again, we can see described and reasonably or rationally explained in the books. For example, in the Genesis by Allan Kardec, there is a chapter where Kardec talks about the nature of Jesus, his miracles, how it happened, and gives a rational explanation for everything. We can also see some explanation about it more in depth, in case we are interested in reading about it, in the book Heaven and Hell. But it's just to be registered here in case we want to expand our knowledge. So healing mediums are the ones who helps through prayer or meditation. They donate their fluid with the assistance of the spiritual benefactors and help in the healing. There is another interesting point that one of the Spiritist speakers says in one of her speeches, that sometimes during studies that we participate at the Spiritist Center, we can be helped with this healing or this energy that the spirits donate to us when we participate and engage in the studies. We also have what we call the psychographic mediums, which are the mediums who receive the message from the spirits through writing. And this particular manifestation as well, we see two types. We can see different degrees, but mainly two to three types of mediums. We have those who write the messages, what we say mechanic mediums. They write the message, but they don't know what they are writing about. So the spirit dictates or writes the message through them, but the medium will read the message on when the manifestation has finished. We also have those semi-mechanic mediums. They have an idea about the message, but they don't fully perceive it. As the spirit communicates and it writes it has an idea of what is being written. And we have the mediums who perceive the message. It's like it has a filter in the mind to perceive the message and then write through psychographic mediums or psychography, mediumship. This is how the manifestation happens in these different levels. We also have the speaking mediums, which they are us human beings who receive the message from the spirits. The spirits use their vocal cords to pass on the message. Most of the time, like we said, it was very similar to the psychographic mediums. It's very similar. Sometimes they can be knowing what is being said. They have total awareness of the message being passed. Or they could be in a state of consciousness that they don't know the message. The spirit speaks through them, but they don't know what's being said. And we could also be in a state where we know more or less what is being said. We have also, if we look on YouTube, we have a lot of messages given to us by Divaldo Franco through the spirit Bezerra de Menezes. So this is an example of the speaking mediums, or psychophony, we could also say. So when the spirit uses the medium through his vocal cords to pass on the message, this is also an example of mediumship manifestation. Another one, now going more to the physical effect, we talked about the intellectual effect, the type of mediumship manifestations, where it's more related to of the intellect, of passing messages that we can have access to. But there is also another example of mediumship manifestation which Kardec called physical effects a medium, or physical effects mediumship manifestation. He points out again, like we saw with the psychophony or psychography, that it can be facultative when the mediums know what's going on and is helping consciously in the phenomena. And we have an example on the picture which is called levitation. And it can also be intentionally transporting objects. But we also have another type of mediumship manifestation of physical effects, which is called involuntary phenomena. And this is when it occurs. The medium has the mediumship, but is not aware that it has it. So the manifestation happens involuntarily. It doesn't know it is happening because of him. He might be responsible for the phenomena without knowing it. And we have a book, very interesting book by a author called Leon Denis, where he talks about a lot of those phenomena giving a rational explanation. And Kardec also talks about it in the Medium's book. And he gives examples such as when objects fall suddenly, or we see the curtains moving suddenly. There are a lot of examples for us to refer to that illustrates it. Now, now that we went through building our rationale around mediumship, why it happens, why it is possible for it to happen, we will reflect a little bit about when we are born with this faculty or with this ability to interact with the spiritual world. Why is that? What are we invited to? And it's pointed out to us in different books throughout the Spiritist literature that mediumship is a serious commitment for individual. Is an invitation for self-discipline, is an invitation for self-betterment, is an invitation for us to reflect on our choices and how we are dealing with our life and the experiences that are presented to us. It is something like everything else that will be held accountable, as we said previously. And we learn in Spiritism that the main point of mediumship, of this ability we have to interact with the spiritual world, is for us to learn to serve others, to help others. It is, as they put out in the book Mediums and Mediumship by Divaldo Franco, chapter 9, Mediumistic Responsibility, is an opportunity we have to help the spiritual benefactors, those who are responsible for the advancement of humanity, to help them to pass on this message or this knowledge that they have, to help us while we are here. So this exchange that we can have with the spiritual world is always for us to improve ourselves and to help others to improve themselves. We can see that when we analyze, for example, as we see in the picture, all the messages that were received by Chico Xavier, all the books he wrote and published without receiving anything from it. Everything was donated to charity, but it was a means that he found to help humanity throughout his whole life. We see again another example of a medium that helps humanity a lot, Divaldo Franco. It's as we mentioned that we are born with mediumship. It's something that we are born with, but it is something that we need to be constantly educating or constantly looking after. In the same way that if we want to be a great pianist, if we wanted to succeed, for example, in playing the piano, we need to practice. We need to continuously improve ourselves in this skill. So it's the same with mediumship. We briefly said at the beginning of the first slides that Spiritism is a science that needs to be studied constantly for us to understand, and it's the same with mediumship. It is something that we need to improve. We need to study constantly. We need to practice with seriousness and responsibility. And the more we educate ourselves and all those values, the more we engage with our self-improvement, the better will be our perception, the more we will have our inner balance, the more we'll be able to help, let's say, in a better way. And another message, very important message that we're passing, is about our immortality. It is about, within mediumship, we learn that we are immortal spirits. We will never cease to exist. That although sometimes the challenges we face on planet Earth, on life, seem to be very difficult, we learn with mediumship that about the immortality of the soul, that we are immortal beings, and we can actually, with our own effort, with the understanding of the situation, overcome whatever situation we may be in. And obviously, again, the more we study, the greater is our knowledge about the divine science, about the interaction of the spirits with the corporeal world, the better we can interact with all those communications that happen, understanding what's going on, understanding ourselves, understanding that when we perceive, we have a perception, understanding what that is. It will help us to construct our inner balance. We will, even in a rudimentary state, even in a very small state, we might perceive the spirits, but the invitation from Spiritism to us is to come down, reflect about what we're listening, about the interaction, study, understand it, so we'll be able to better live with it, because, like we said, it's something that we are born with, and not something that anyone can take out of us or make it stop happening. And again, another reminder from the spiritual benefactors that mediumship is something natural, is something that we are born with, is something inherent to life itself, remembering that we are immortal spirits in a physical body, not the other way around. We spirits, as well as this side of being able to see, to speak, to hear, we also have this ability to perceive the spiritual world. And the guidance we give to it, the more we study about it, understand it, it will be responsible for our happiness or unhappiness, like every single choice we make. So it's important to note that more important than being preoccupied or concerned of the development of mediumship, it is important to be concerned with our moral and intellectual development, because the better we become as human beings, the better we'll be able to serve and to leave our mediumistic interactions with the spirits. And just to, as we come into the end, just to remember that mediumship is like is a faculty that enables us to consciously or unconsciously communicate with the spirits, with those who already left the physical body. The physical body. It is neutral in the sense that it's not something good or bad, and it all depends on what we're going to do with it. It all depends of what are the choices we'll make when perceiving that we are able to communicate or able to make this exchange happen. And it's like we mentioned before, it's a great tool for us to reflect on our immortality of our soul. It's a great tool for us to understand that we are immortal beings. It is a great tool for us to help those also outside the body who may not even realize that their life, for example, on planet Earth, ceased, finished. So it's also an opportunity to help those who need help. And it's another very interesting point that Kardec tells us, that it is very important, and we mentioned before, for the medium to reflect about his choices, his character, what is the choices he's making, and if it's taking him where he wants to be in terms of moral values, living in according to God's laws. And charity, helping others, is also very important point to reflect when practicing mediumship. And to finish, is in the Medium's book, Part 1, Item 13, Kardec says that acquiring any science demands time and study, and Spiritism, which addresses the most serious questions of philosophy in every sector of the social order, and which encompasses both the physical and moral individual at the same time, is a complete science and philosophy in itself, and it cannot be assimilated in only a few hours, which is true of any other science. So to finish our reflections here today, we finish with the message of for us to engage with the study of Spiritism, as Kardec points out in the introduction of the Spirit's book, with seriousness, approaching it with time, because it's not a science that can be easily comprehended and studied, as he points out, in a few hours, but it demands a constant study, constant self-reflection, a constant update of values, update of references. So yeah, this is it from us today. We again thank you for our time, and we emphasize one more time the importance of the study of the Spiritism. Thank you.